Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Addicted to Success podcast. I'm your host, Joel Brown, and today we have the motivational speaker, incredible author, and all-around out-of-this-world dude. I actually had the opportunity to meet him at Bulletproof Cafe last week. We just bumped into each other, and we've been meaning to meet each other for so long. This is the man of the hour, Kute Blackson.
What's up, bro? It's good to be here, man. Destiny collided us in that moment, in a moment of coffee. Even though I didn't have any coffee, destiny brought us together.
Not just any coffee, man. Bulletproof coffee. All right. Yeah, you know, it's awesome to be in a space. You know, at the moment, you know, you and I are millennials, and we have a lot of these millennial thought leaders coming up right now. And it seems a lot of people in this space around our age group are really like putting their books out now, and they're moving to that next level. And so I've noticed that you've been putting, you know, a number of videos out. You're actually in the Rise Up film with me that's coming out later this year. And a lot of people have been talking, a lot of people have been saying, you know, Kute Blackson, you got to check him out. You know, he's a great speaker and so on. So it's great to see, see you in person, meet you in person. And I'm excited for your book, man. It's called You Are the One.
That's right.
And I saw the trailer for it as well. If you haven't seen the trailer, go to kuteblackson.com. That's Kute Blackson.com. And the trailer is awesome, man. I love how it's like, the government's not going to help you, and your best friend's not going to help you. Your friends are going to help you. You are the one. You have to help yourself.
No one's coming. No one's coming.
No one is coming. So, dude, this basically what you're saying is you need to become self-reliant, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we do this? How do we become more self-reliant so that we can shift our own self to that next level without having to rely on everybody else for us to make a change?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that happened for me and the shift that happened was many years ago when I first moved to the US. I remember being in a tiny apartment, having no money, like literally stealing bread from a grocery store, which is pretty sad, you know, because I had nothing, like literally. And I remember being in my living room. It was my whole house, which was 300-400. That means 500 square feet. I mean, it was tiny, and being mad at the world, being pissed off at God, being mad at my father for not being there and being supportive, and felt like no one had my back, basically. And I remember being in my living room, just crying, just really crying, and feeling, to be honest, feeling completely sorry for myself, and feeling like God, like if I did this meditation, and if I did this mantra, if I did this prayer, if I was a good person, then like God owed me my dreams or my destiny. And I realized I had this kind of entitlement mentality. So I think one of the shifts that we have to make is giving up any sense of entitlement. And the shift that happened for me in that moment, but you know, my book's about some of my journeys to India, but the shift that happened for me was this idea of like, no one owes you anything. And when I really took on that paradigm, like, God doesn't owe me anything. You know, well, why doesn't God owe me anything? Because we've been given everything. We've been given hands and ears and eyes and so much potential. We are being lived and breathed in this moment by the same force that ignited creation. I mean, we've been given so much within us, so much resources. What else do we want? You know, and I looked at, I was mad at my father. It's like, well, he owes me a phone call. He owes me this. He owes me money. It's like, the reality is, he gave me life. What else do I want? He gave me life. And if that's all he gave me, he gave me way more than that, but it's like enough. And I saw how entitled I was and how incredibly ungrateful I was for everything that I already am and everything that I had. So that shift happened. And when I realized that, there was an awakening, there was an opening, there was a reclaiming of my power, there was a profound opening and awakening to gratitude. And we hear about gratitude. But what I also saw was my ego. It was a very spiritual moment, Joe. It was like my ego was resisting full gratitude, living in the totality of gratitude, because it was almost as though my ego wanted to create this separate sense of self from life, because if I was to really be in gratitude for existence, for what's living and breathing me and us all, it's almost like I would have to surrender to the process of life, to surrender to what is living, which would sort of end this sense of like meanness, separation, and it was a profound moment. So, giving up entitlement, no one's going to do it for you. No one owes you anything. Was a real freedom, and it allowed me to reclaim my power. And when I went to India, which I write about in the book a lot, when I went to India, I spent time in the slums. I know you've been, different parts of the world, and we see people who have nothing. And I spent time in the slums of India with some people that became friends and living in 8 by 10 rooms. And I saw that these folks had nothing. I remember being with my friend VJ in a tiny room, bro. And it was him, his wife, his 2 kids, his parents. And there they were in this room, and they looked so happy. And I was so miserable. and I asked VJ, "Are you happy?" And he looked at me like I was completely crazy. Like, what do you mean? Of course, like, how can we not be happy? We have so much. We have everything. And I realized, wow, if this guy can have that feeling of gratitude in the midst of that, then how rich am I? How much do I have? So that shifted a lot. So that giving up of entitlement was a huge paradigm shift for me, and something I would say, let's begin there, because it moves you into gratitude and abundance.
Amen, brother. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I think Tony Robbins says it best. He says that the quality of our life is in direct proportion with where we live emotionally. And so for you, you're choosing. Every moment we get to choose, we have a choice, right? So you were choosing to not be grateful, to not appreciate what you actually had. And so I just want to take it back, because I love that you shared that, how you were in the living room in LA. I mean, I understand why you probably be like struggling a bit, or having problems with bills and that, because the prices in LA just keep going up. I get that. So for rent and that, it's crazy. So it's going to keep going. I speak to a lot of people out here, and I'm okay, but it's like, just to hear their stories, like, wow, okay, I get it. But just take us right back to that point. Like, how did you become conscious in that moment? What was it that was? I know that everything is based off like a decision. You made a decision in that moment that you've had enough. Like, was it just that you looked at the pain and you were like, that's it?
Yeah, I was in so much pain. I was in pain, and I was crying, and there I was, just like wrapped up in, like, here's the key thing, wrapped up in myself. And I realized that I was in so much pain, and all I was really thinking about, bro, was myself and my need and my dream and what can I get and my bank account and my this, and I realized I was just totally obsessed with myself, and maybe rationally, rightly so, because I didn't have anything, so I kind of needed to be. But I looked at that as like, wow, maybe that's part of the reason I'm in such suffering, And then I'd go to India, like not shortly after I went to India, and I saw a man who literally had no arms, was blind. I write about this in the book. Blind, no arms, no legs, and he was singing his heart out, just singing in gratitude for life. And I watched this man for like 8 hours a day for like a week, and just wept, because this guy who had seemingly nothing was in ecstasy. And it was so clear that his focus wasn't fixated on himself. He wasn't in a state of selfing, contraction, self-obsession. And I saw that part of what creates suffering is our own self-obsession. And I saw that, and I started seeing my own obsessive mind, my own focus on myself. And as I started to see that, I started to shift that focus outwards to more and more to being of service, more and more to how can I make a difference, less on myself, and then things start shifting. But it was a deep recognition in that moment of the pain and my focus, obsessed with myself, that was creating my pain and suffering.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. I think that it should be mandatory for people, especially in a space of like self-development, or any space where it's like you want to become a leader in some way, you want to lead, to actually go to a third world country and experience that. If you want to be somebody that stands up front and says it is about gratitude, it's about appreciation and so on, I think it definitely should be mandatory.
For
I've
sure.
learned so much from third world countries, man. Just my experiences in, even like Bali, Indonesia. This 90-year-old woman carrying rice on her head, and she had no shoes on, and she was like hopping and skipping her way down the road, because she was happy. She was working the 10-hour shift to feed her family, and it was home time, and she had done her work for the day. And mind you, these guys work like 6-7 days a week. Same thing in India.
Yeah.
So Yeah,
non-stop. You know, and I think in some of those cultures, you know, I think you're so right. In terms of, you know, anyone who wants to be a leader should go to a third world country, and I think in some of those cultures, because to some degree, I mean, obviously there's a lot of riches in some of those countries like India as well, but in some of those cultures where people are poor, where there is a lot of poverty, and that's just kind of part of at least a level of existence, I think it focuses people when the material stuff isn't necessarily as readily available. You know, it focuses people's attention inside.
yes,
You know, it forces us to. We don't have the luxury to distract ourselves with the you know $1,000 phone or the bling or whatever it might be that money can so-called buy.
yeah,
Because when you don't have that, where else do you go? You kind of have to start looking beyond, either to your connection with the divine, just to be able to deal with your current situation. You have to like find something more than your current situation. So it often drives, sometimes the poverty can drive people to you look at India, you know, it's such a spiritually focused country. People are driven to kind of find some faith and hope beyond their circumstance. And also because there's less distractions, I think it forces people to go inside
yes,
and find this a deeper source, you
yes,
know, of their being,
yeah,
which is who we really are. And I think when we find that source of our being, we find a source of infinite happiness that's not dependent on any of this stuff outside.
yeah. Hell yeah. Cute, you sound very tuned in. What have you practiced over the last few years that you feel has really benefited you in your spiritual growth?
Hmm. Um, um, honestly, I love the question, but I have to answer honestly. I wouldn't even say it's the last few years, bro. It's been, for me, it's been a process of my whole life.
Yeah,
And so I can't, you know, I don't want to mislead someone and say, well, I did these couple of things for the last few years and here's where I am. And that just, you know, if you do this thing too, you're going to be there. Honestly, it's been
so,
a cultivation and process for many years since I was a kid. You know, since I was a kid, I started meditating. My father's a healer. I grew up with a healer as a father. My first memories, and that all, you know, you talk about, that's what affected me even to this point. My first memories as a young boy was literally seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor, picking up the sand this man walked on, wiping on her face and standing up. Seeing blind people see, deaf people hear. So I grew up, talk about the cultivation. I grew up with that sense of possibility. I grew up with that sense that, you know, we live in a multi-dimensional universe. So that really kind of opened my perception and perspective in such a profound way that's impacted me today, that I have to look back and appreciate. You know, AJ, I started speaking in my father's churches. 14, I was ordained as a minister. But I started reading books, and I look, even when I am today, I look back at some of the books I read when I was 8 and 12 and 14. And, you know, you talked about Tony Robbins. I listened to Power Talk when I was 10. So all of that has been the fabric of that has contributed to fertilizing the soil of my consciousness, you know, and more and more it's been, you know, yes, I meditate, you know, I pray, I meditate, you know, I spend time in nature. But I think for me, one thing that I love, because when we talk about, well, what is spirituality? One thing I love is I really seek to practice in everyday life, just the living of being my word. You know, to me, that's something I practice that makes a difference. Living in integrity, you know, simple things, but to me, that's a sign of like where I'm at now in terms of the simplicity of my practice. Can I be my word? Can I live in integrity? Can I do what I say? Can I show up? Can I simply love the person that's in front of me? Yeah, I mean, I can do all these mantras and levitate and you know, or get to higher levels of consciousness and kundalini and what have you. But look, can I just show up? So my practice more and more is the simplicity of can I just love this person in front of me? Can I be kind? You know, it's not complicated, but I think many of us, we don't do those things just as a daily reality. And I think that when we do that, then we get to, my path has been, how can I integrate spirituality into the daily nitty gritty of my everyday life? No separation between divine and regular living, sacred and profane, you know, like Maybe how can I make going to the toilet as spiritual as going to the temple? You know, and finding that integration between spiritual and worldly. So that's been really part of my path, to embrace every moment as a spiritual moment, to embrace life itself as a temple, you know, as a temple without walls, you know. So that's been it's been my practice, man, the life practice.
Wow, a temple without walls. Wow, 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 wow. That's deep, man. You're going deep now. I love it. I love it.
Where it really hit me, just to kind of, you just triggered something. The temple without walls. Where I really learned that was when I was in India. I spent the first time I was in India. I shaved my head. You know, I had a backpack. Had these visions of being like Mother Teresa. I mean, no ego in that, right? I was like, I wanted to be Mother Teresa, and
Big ambitions, man.
big ambition. So I spent time with one of my mentors. He was 80 years old at the time, and 82 actually, and he was the oldest living disciple of Gandhi. He's like 92, 94 now, in that zone. An amazing human being. He built like 300 orphanages in India, does the largest eye camp in India. I mean, takes the poorest of the poorest kids. And I remember like spending 2 weeks with these kids, bro, and it literally killed me. I was ready to like give up the idea of trying to help anyone after that. Spending time with these kids who, you know, he found living in trash heaps with cats and dogs and trash, you know. So these kids weren't very social. So they didn't really appreciate my service, you know. So my ego was totally triggered. I didn't realize it at the time. And after 2 weeks, I had literally given up. And I said to him, his name was Dwarkaji. I said, Dwarkaji, I'm going to go to meditate by the Bodhi tree. His ashram is right where the Buddha got enlightened. So I was going to go meditate by the Bodhi tree. And he looks at me with such compassion. And he says to me, it's beautiful that you go meditate by the Bodhi tree, where the Buddha got enlightened, by the statue of the Buddha. But just make sure that your heart doesn't turn to stone. It's like, whoa.
Wow.
Because right here in this orphanage,
Yeah.
these children here in front of you are living Buddhas, living Christs, just waiting to be worshipped, loved, and served. It was like the moment my life changed, in that moment. And I realized, wow, talk about the living temple. Like every moment is that sacred opportunity, you know?
That is wild. That is wild, man. It's like you don't even need to go and sit under a tree for that, man. You know how many people I speak to that are like, I'm going to this mountain for this, or I'm going to that place for that, and this place to be like. It's like, man, there's opportunities all around you. I had somebody recently tell me that, like, you know, they feel like they're living in the dark, and they're living in, you know, they just can't see the light and so on. It's like there's light everywhere. One friend says, you create the tunnel, you know, in your life. When it comes to pain, when it comes to suffering, like whatever, you get to choose every day. And you know, there's so many beautiful things around us that we can learn from over and over. Joe Dispenza, he's incredible. I interviewed him quite a while back, and he said maybe the problem is that we are just poor observers. We're so like into just checking out this and checking out that and overanalyzing. It's like sit back for once and just sit and chill and see it for what it is. Watch the actions. And be still, you know. And that's awesome, man, that you had that experience and you're sharing that with us now. That's great, man. Getting the exclusives. I love it, man. I love it. So let's jump into the book real quick too. You know, this is about your latest you know, gift that you're offering the world, man. It's a book is a real deal. I know you said that you had worked on it for 8 years, 10 years, and it's the book that wasn't the book from 10 years ago. It's the book now is like something new. So just share with us, you know, what does the book really mean to you, and what should it mean for everybody else that picks it up?
I mean, for me, the book is an expression of my heart and soul. I always knew I would write a book. When I first read my first self-help book when I was age 8 by a woman called Shakti Gawain, Creative Visualization, changed my life. So I felt the power of the word. I felt the power of a message. So I always felt a deep calling to spread a message of love and inspiration, a book that would help people reclaim their power, a book that would help people create authentically, a book that would help people ultimately discover who they really are. Because what I found is Yeah, you can help people get what they want, but many times people will get what they want, but it's when they get it, they realize this isn't what I want. So we can get what we want based on who we think we are, but if we're not in touch with who we are, then what we want is going to be a little off. So for me, the foundation is really helping people connect to who they are, and who we are is not just this body, not just this conditioned form, not just what we identify ourselves as in terms of our stories, our past, our programming. What we are is infinite. What we are is soul. What we are is consciousness, pure consciousness manifesting as this amazing work of art called Joel, called Kute, called whatever, Bernie, Hillary, Preston, Alexi, Christine. I mean, the list goes on. Tony, Joe Dispenza. I mean, it's just we're all works of art. So I think part of my message in the book is to help people remember and get people to question, who are you really? And from that, as you realize that what you are is consciousness, then then the whole game shifts from what can I get, what can I do, what do I want, to what wants me, what wants to express through me, what wants to be given birth through me. And then part of our, you could say, role in life becomes simply surrendering, getting ourselves out of the way and allowing ourselves to be fully used. Because I think when we can go beyond the mind and go beyond the thoughts and go beyond this identified form, we tap into an infinite realm of pure potential. And that pure potential is what's seeking to manifest through us. So I believe we don't, part of the book is learning that we don't have to make our lives happen. We don't have to manifest. We just have to get ourselves out the way. And that's where we access a zone of miracles, where people like Gandhi and Jesus and Buddha and Mother Teresa and Bruce Lee and Bob Marley and Muhammad Ali and, the list goes on. These greats lived in that zone beyond themselves. So that's what's exciting for me in terms of helping people live that greatness. I mean, everyone wants to be great, but I think not everyone truly fulfills that potential because we get conditioned. We get conditioned into believing we are this form. As we're born as children, we're born free. We're born in touch with you. You look at a child. The child will jump on a table and sing and dance naked. It doesn't wonder, hey, Joel, am I fat? What do you think of my eyes? Do I look good? It would just like sing and just come up to you. It doesn't care that you're tall, that you're short, that you're black, white. It's just free-flowing expression of love. But as as we're born, we meet our parents. Sometimes they're interesting and have their own challenges, and society and media. And slowly as children, we get conditioned. And we learn all sorts of ways to disconnect and not feel, and to not feel the pain of abandonment, trauma, our parents not neglecting us, whatever our story is. We learn a way to not feel, and those layers start building up. But we also learn a way of how to be in the world in terms of who do I need to be in order for you to love me. So we start developing a whole mask and a persona. So we get conditioned thinking that's who we are. So part of this book is a bold invitation and question that says, well, maybe who you are is not who you think you are. And if that's the case, who are you really? And opens that portal for people in a simple way to uncondition, to not even like teach. Yes, you will learn stuff, but not to just teach you stuff, but to unteach you, to uncondition you, to uncoach you, to untrain you, so that you can peel back the layers that you've built up and just connect with the true essence of what you are, have always been, and will always be.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, dude, that sits with me so deep. I feel like so many people, and this is what I get from a lot of people that I coach, one-on-ones and also in my mastermind group and so on, and people that I come across in everyday life, is they're hitting an expiry date. They really are. They're not keeping it fresh. They're staying in the same place, and they're feeling frustration all the time. And frustration is your purpose is trying to get out of you. You're holding it back. You're standing in your own way. You're not allowing your purpose to be released and be unfolded. So I can't wait to read more about all this in your book too, because this subject just excites me so much, man. I feel like this is like really the key to why we're here. It's like two of the most important questions: who am I and why am I here? It's like most people can't answer that. They really can't. So getting clear on it through your book, man, I'm excited to learn more. Man.
You just triggered a thought, brother. You said that sometimes we get stuck. I was it's kind of funny, but I was just remembering the Bob Marley song. You have to emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Well, it's almost like we've become constipated. So you have to unconstipate yourself, so
You gotta
that
cleanse, man. You
you
gotta
gotta have
cleanse.
you have a consciousness cleanse, so that soul, so that spirit, so that life can just flow through you,
Uh-huh.
effortlessly, gracefully,
Yes.
magically. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. That is so beautiful. Another point as well that I wanted to touch on with you, because I noticed before you were talking about like, who is this in front of me? Like, how
Mhm.
can I serve better? How can I contribute? How can I give more? Uh, I believe that it's harder, it's more challenging to give more if you don't know what you actually have to give. And so
Yeah.
part of knowing what you have to give is self-love, is loving yourself.
Yeah.
I know that you work with a number of people on the whole topic of self-love. So just give us a tidbit on what we can expect from the book in the way of self-love and the importance of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think self-love is the foundation of all love, and as
Uh-huh.
and I think as we get conditioned and programmed with all the stories and the layers and the thoughts and the judgments, we start identifying and believing we are those layers. We are those stories. We are all of that sort of clothing that we brought up, and then what we start doing is we start relating to that persona as ourselves, and we start judging that. So what we're judging itself isn't even real. What we're judging
Yeah.
is itself not reality. We're judging an illusion, but we've forgotten it's an illusion because we become so identified with that illusion, and then that keeps us reinforced in the illusory perception of me. So I think part of waking up is realizing that, and as we start questioning ourselves with love, as we start questioning who we are, like, is this true? Is this who I really am? Where did I get that? And we start feeling some of those feelings that we haven't felt, and we start letting stuff go. We start connecting to, talk about self-love, we start connecting to the deeper dimension of ourselves. And I feel like when we're not in touch with who we really are, we seek love outside to try and get that sense of love outside from friends and relationships and romantic partners and fame and money and all these things outside, but they're never really fulfilling. But I think as we really start connecting with who we are, like at the depth of our core, at the real level of self, what we start to feel as we let the layers go is that what we are essentially is love. The self, the real self with the capital S, not the ego little self, that's always in competition and fear and separation, is love. Like, what we are is love, and I think that's where, for me, the game shifts. And that's a process, that's a cultivation, but the focus has to shift as we start connecting deeper with who we really are. And then at that level, we realize there's no separation between me and you, between me and the person down the street. There's no separation. At that level, we're all one. And if I know who I am and you know who you are, how can there not be love? How can there not be love? Because there's, at that deepest level, there's only the self. There's only one of us here. There's only love that is present. So that's one level of things. And I think when we realize that, and we realize that we have been created by consciousness, by the divine, by the infinite, whatever intelligence is creating all of existence, we are a manifestation of love, and we are sort of divine art. So how can we not love ourselves? How can we not love what we are? We're art, and to me, it's not about. One of the things that stops us from loving ourselves is we have this egoic idea that we have to be like perfect human beings. Like, we have to be these perfect human beings that never feel sad, never feel angry, never have off days, never contract. But as human beings, there's no perfection at the level of the personality. And I think if we're looking for perfection at the level of personality, we'll never find perfection there. We're imperfectly perfect. And I think the more we can start to bring compassion and love those parts of ourselves that we deem wrong or deem bad or judge as imperfect, then we can bring ourselves into a whole different relationship with ourselves and loving ourselves just as we are, even loving the part of us that is unable to love ourselves. Because sometimes we think, well, when I love myself, then if we can't love ourselves and we find ourselves not able to love ourselves, can we love the fact that we can't love ourselves? And that creates a whole different relationship with ourselves, a whole different space for us to hold ourselves. That is where the real healing happens.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's interesting about that? I love that you shared that too, Cute. Thank you. What's interesting about that is that love is infinite. So like we always have more room to grow, to
Yes.
have more love, to give more love. It's fun, man. It's a fun project in life to focus on whenever we want.
Exactly.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So you said that your father is a pastor, right?
Yeah, my father is a very unique guy. I was really, him and I weren't the closest, in terms of human level, but on the soul level, we were very close. And a lot of who I am and just my soul essence has been impacted by him in a beautiful way. And yeah, he's a healer, he's a teacher. He is still alive. He's a minister. Built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa.
Wow.
At his height, close to 1 million followers, 1 million people in his congregation. Probably has a few 100,000 now. I built one church in London where I grew up, and it was a real unique, man. You look at people today like Michael Beckwith and New Thought teachers, pre Beckwith, and before all of the secret, before this movement, there was a whole generation of ministers in the U.S. People like Reverend Ike and Johnny Coleman and Emmett Fox and the Unity, Charles Fillmore. So my father was sort of part of that generation, and was a beautiful man, beautiful man. But he had, what I realized is he had, being a human being, he had a vision for my life and what my life should be. He wanted me to take over. So when I was 14, he announced to the entire congregation, bro, that my son's taking over the church.
Oh,
And I looked,
wow.
and I turned around and looked at my mother on the stage, going, I am. I guess I am. I guess this is my life, because I wanted to make a difference, but
Oh,
I guess I wasn't. It wasn't. It didn't really feel right. So what I realized was there's no shortage of people that will tell you who you should be. There's no shortage of people that will have expectations for your life, and if we're not clear on who we are and what we want, it's so easy to live someone else's life. It's so easy to become who someone else wants us to be. And I had to really acknowledge it was really tough, because I had to look at the factor in terms of, I had to tell myself the truth. And the truth was, this is not the life I wanted. This isn't the life that my soul wanted. And it was terrifying, because I love my father. And I felt if I told the truth to my father, we wouldn't have a relationship. We wouldn't speak. And so it took me, as a young man, it took me about 4 years to muster up the courage to tell myself the truth and to tell him the truth. And I think one of the things that keeps us stuck, what I've seen working with clients around the world, is what keeps us stuck is all the ways we don't tell ourselves the truth, all the ways we BS ourselves, all the ways we lie to ourselves, all the way we play this game, like the game of like, well, Joel, I don't really know I don't really know if this relationship is right for me. I don't really know what I should be doing with my life. I'm confused. BS, we're not confused. There is a deeper knowing, but sometimes there's a fear inside of us that if I really own my truth, then what will the consequences be? And we're afraid of that. So we lie to ourselves as an unconscious protection mechanism. So I think one thing to really shift our lives is to be willing to tell ourselves the radical, honest truth. Even if we don't do anything about it, even if we're just going to stay where we are, I know the truth, this isn't working for me, I'm going to keep doing it because I'm too afraid. But if we tell ourselves the truth, it begins the process, the inner movement inside of us where we can't go back. So I had to tell my father the truth. I had to tell myself the truth. And it was transformational. It was difficult. We didn't speak for a couple of years. It was very challenging. Sometimes you think, oh, the romance novel of, you speak the truth and everything is hunky dory, and it's like
always.
not always. It was very challenging, and but I feel as though when we speak the truth, ultimately the truth serves everyone, even though doesn't seem that way at first. And I had to put a lot of faith and trust in what I felt in my soul, that the reality of my soul was more than the reality of the world, because I felt guided. I didn't have any proof. I felt guided, and I made a prayer one day, John. I said, God, if the vision I have is real, if the calling I have is real to help people and come to America and do it differently than my father, then show me the way. And literally days later, someone handed me a magazine. I looked in the back of the magazine. It was The Economist. I looked in the back of the magazine. It said the American government's giving away 55,000 green cards in the green card lottery. And cut a long story short, I won a lottery. I won a green card in the lottery, literally, to come to the US. And that was a sign that, for me, a reinforcement that when I follow my soul and I'm not willing to compromise myself and compromise my soul, because I feel we so often compromise, but when I don't, then I'm in alignment. And it may not be easy. I wanted to give up many times, but there was a deeper underlying peace in my heart, and that's why I felt the universe working on my behalf.
Wow. Dude, that was a big flashing neon sign. That is so crazy. That's cool, man. Hey, I want to win a green card in the lottery.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that, man. I was looking for what lesson did your father teach you? And you basically shared a story where we can all pull multiple lessons from. So thank you for sharing that, man. Thanks for sharing your truth. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Kute, where can we pick up your book?
Well, you can everywhere. But Amazon. But one thing I want to invite everyone to go to, youaretheonebook.com. Youaretheonebook.com. You can buy the book there. It will link you to Amazon, but everyone will also receive like 6 amazing free gifts from videos and meditations and audios and trainings, and I'm giving away everything, all the good stuff that you can kind of get access to and be inspired by, and just want to add value to people's lives, and pray and hope and intend that this book just inspires people beyond to infinity.
Yeah, beautiful. Just like love, man. Hey, you know what? I did see you were getting real generous there with the gifts as well that come along with the book. You got the online series and the tickets and the exclusive interviews and all that as well. So
giving away.
Good on you, man. Good on you for packing it with value instead of just making it. We were talking about this before, just how some people don't even write their own books, or they write it to make a bunch of money and so on. So it's really cool that this has been a long project for you. That is worthwhile, and really you're bringing the best to the table. So, I had to skim through your book and checked out a couple chapters, and I just can't wait to deep dive and squeeze the juice out of it, because I know it's a juicy book. So, thank you, man. Thank you.
Awesome, bro. Been great hanging with you, man. Feel your heart, appreciate you, and we fell in love at Bulletproof, brother.
That's it, mate. That's it. So, look, man, we always end the interviews with this one last question, and the question is, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like your parting words of wisdom?
Depending on when that moment would be, and depending on which day, in this moment, something I say a lot is coming to mind, and I would just simply ask a question. And I would ask everyone to sit with the question, what if today was the last day of your life? What if today was the last day of your life? Would you be ready? Would you be ready? Are you ready to die, to throw your arms wide open and say yes? And if not, why not? What do you need to say? Who do you need to express to? Who do you need to forgive? What do you need to do so that you are ready? Because the reality is none of us know when that moment will come. The people in 9/11, the people in just a few days ago, Orlando, the people in, the Southeast Asian tsunami, earthquakes. None of us know we won't come home that night and be able to look our loved ones in the eyes and say, I really love you, or I'm sorry, or forgive me, or whatever we want to say. So I believe that life owes us nothing. The next breath is not guaranteed. It's not a right, it's a privilege that we should love fully, and give everything we've got to everything as everything, because we are everything. And life is a gift, Life is a gift. Love now, love deeply, love profoundly, because at the end of the day, that's really what matters,